In this video, as part of a player guide series for the new state of play in Star Citizen and the upcoming patch, I'm going into more detail about ship combat, weapons, and utilities. Hopefully you've seen my last video about 3.14, but on the off chance that you haven't, here is a quick recap and examples of some of the things we'll be going over in this video. And if you caught the tests live over on my live stream, then don't worry, because this isn't a waste of your time. I've got more information and more details, as well as my own thoughts to go through. So, all ships, regardless of class and size, now have a resource called capacitors to use as power distribution for all your components and weapons of your ship. A new mode called Missile Operator Mode is now the only way to access missile lock and launch controls within a ship, but whether that be as a pilot or accessible via a co-pilot position for your ship is something we'll go through a little later. And all weapons have seen a complete rework and balance pass and now function very differently from what you may be used to in previous patches. What weapons are the best and how to optimize your loadout will all be discussed in this video. Lastly, most, if not all ships have seen some major reworks for their thruster performance, meaning that roll, pitch, yaw, and any lateral movement may be completely different than what you were familiar with. But have no worries, we'll be covering that too. I'll even show you a great tool that may help you identify ships that suit your playstyle quickly and effectively. So, where do we start? Well, if you're anything like me, then the first and most important thing you probably want to know is what on Terra is a capacitor, and does this mean you have to relearn everything about ship-to-ship combat? The quick answer to this question really depends on how familiar you are with ship combat as a whole. If you consider yourself a decent dogfighter with okay to moderate understandings of power management already, then the new capacitor system should be quick to learn and easily adaptable thanks to its three-pronged design. If you are a new player, welcome. You may find it a bit more complex, but the quick and dirty way to wrap your head around it is to probably imagine capacitors as a boost option to one of three of your main ship outputs: shield, thruster, and weapons. The capacitors are a passive byproduct of your power triangle, splitting what would be 100% power distribution boost to all three components, 33% each, and the power triangle is your way of interacting with this power boost and distributing it to your preferred output. So what do the different outputs mean, and what do they do? Well, weapons. This is depending on loadout, and as such more detail on this will be a little later in the video. But in short, the more power to weapons, the more ammo and ammo regen you will get. Shields are probably the simplest of the three. The more power to shields, the faster your down shields will regenerate, and the more damage your shields should be able to take before dropping to a zero state and leaving you vulnerable. And then thrusters. These have been changed a lot in the most recent patch, so for now, the more power you assign to thrusters, the quicker your boost will regenerate, and the more effective it becomes to use, allowing you to move more dynamically and use extreme maneuvers to outflight your opponent. Now, I hope that makes sense, but any questions you have, please leave them down in the comments below, because now we move on to the really exciting stuff. More details about weapons. Weapons by far saw the greatest change of anything this patch, probably one of the greatest changes ever made in terms of scale. As a fan of these changes, I believe I am able to explain in greater detail what's going on, but also why it's going on. So let's start with that. Why did SIG make such drastic changes? Well, I believe it boils down to two very simple things: design goals and gameplay. The design goal of the developers is still to make sure that each weapon is viable in some way, and that player choice still makes a big impact on why you might choose a certain weapon over another. On the side of gameplay, the changes just make it easier for designers and engineers to balance weapons across the board, rather than going patch to patch, tweaking this or that. By starting at a baseline, they can clearly see where some weapons can be modified and boosted in certain aspects, and also maybe where a certain weapon hasn't already filled a niche, and create one just for that. Weapons as of right now are more about how you want to play, rather than what's the best to play. Whether you prefer high alpha single hit damage or prolonged damage over time. Whether you prefer alpha strike ability in the form of ballistics, or whether you prefer sustainability in the form of energy weapons. This is by far the simplest way of explaining it. So now that that's out of the way, what is the best loadout, I hear you ask? That all depends on you, and what you value as a player. But I am not going to leave you empty-handed, so here are my findings. On a standard light fighter, think the Gladius or Arrow, you only have limited weapon mounts and limited capacitor charge. Going all energy repeaters will definitely take its toll on your capacitors, and leave you with fewer ammunition per gun, around 20 to 30, before needing to recharge again, and all of this is affected by the power triangle mentioned earlier. But to alleviate this pressure on your system and give you more energy ammo plus slightly higher damage output, you could replace one or more of those energy weapons with a ballistic alternative. Best used when the enemy shields are down, a ballistic will quickly make mincemeat of any ship. But be warned, once your ammo is depleted, you will have no way to rearm them until you visit a pad to repair. Moving up to slightly larger ships like the Hornet or Buccaneer, these two share a limited amount of charge for your weapons and capacitors. However, it is slightly more, and with even more hard points, you can now have even more ballistic weapons for even more ammo before needing to rearm, which in turn leaves you with more energy ammo and charge as well. This pattern repeats and scales accordingly for single-seater fighters all the way up to the Freelancer and Aegis Vanguard, each with slightly more charge than their light fighter counterparts, but with the added bonus of a heavier hull, increased HP pool, and survivability at the cost of maneuverability. Gimbaled and fixed weapon reliability is now far closer and matching in strength than before too, with choices between range, firepower, and ammo really being the deciding factor for your choice of loadout. So, have no fear, if you don't think you can compete in the fixed meta arena, then maybe gimbals are for you. Where things get super interesting though, is when it comes to any vehicle with a dedicated turret gunner operable only seat. Ships like the Anvil Gladiator, Hurricane, Constellation, Hammerhead, and more. Ships like these with dedicated gunner seats have seen an incredible performance change. Not only are they far more accurate than ever before thanks to even more lenient ESP graphs, but the capacitor charge for each and every one far exceeds that than any single seat capable craft, meaning that you now have a good option in regards to multi-crew viability, with more damage available to individual gunners than one pilot and their ship could ever hope to match. All of these changes have really helped make turret gunning a really considerable option, maybe for yourself and some friends, alongside the new missile operator mode that has completely revamped how missiles work. Second player in your ship can even take charge of locking and firing warheads, while you, the pilot in this scenario, continue to shoot your guns, something that would otherwise be impossible using missile operator mode on your own. So how does the new operator mode stack up to its historical predecessor? Well, in my opinion, it was a much needed and very thoughtful change. No matter the size of missile, no matter how far, missiles are now far deadlier than ever before. Sometimes only taking 2 hits from 2 size 1 missiles is enough to blow your fighter into stardust. Of course, this works for your benefit too. As long as you have a good grasp on countermeasures and how to properly use them, patience is the key really. You should be more capable of dishing out as much, if not more damage than you could ever imagine receiving. By switching to missile operator mode, you'll be taken out of any other pilot interactive mode you were previously in. This means gunning mode or scanning mode. But within missile operator mode, you can do a few new, exciting things, like choose how many missiles you want to lock at any given time, including how many of those missiles you want to fire. For ships and loadouts carrying more than one missile type, you can also use this mode to switch between your warhead options in case one stubborn target just needs a little extra motivation to get out of your way. Really, the new operator mode, and many more to come I'm sure, it's a great and simple way to program multi-crew availability and player choice into the game in a more meaningful way. And to make things even easier for you, you can check out all of the stats up for grabs and how they may benefit you on Urkel. But if you don't want to faff around with that, and would probably rather use optimized loadouts from myself, then you can get those in the Discord subscriber section. All the links to this and more about how you can get the best start possible in Star Citizen can be found in the description down below. I want to thank you all very much for watching this video. I know it's quick, and if you missed anything or if you don't think I answered anything, then please leave a comment or message me in Discord or on Twitter. If you like this video and want to help me make more, then consider subscribing, liking this video and sharing it with others. Don't forget, this is just one of many more to come, so stay tuned until the next time. And in the next one, I'm sure there'll be even more interesting things to go over, as patch 3.14 just seems to be forever evolving into, quite frankly, the best fresh start I've seen in about 8 years. So until then, see you next time.